We are almost a month into the 2021 NBA season, and while it's definitely not enough time to make definitive statements on certain trends, there have been some players that have been holding their teams back because of poor individual play. If these players continue to be liabilities for their team, pressure is going to pick up even more than it already is. So when you go through these 7 players, let me know which one you think is most likely to get back to their best form. 2 years ago, Blake Griffin probably had his best season as someone who leads a team's offense. As his athleticism declined due to injuries, he found other ways to score and manipulate defenses to get the Detroit Pistons into the 8th seed. He was healthy and started in 75 games, he was taking 7 threes a game, and while he wasn't Clippers Blake Griffin, who muscled and jumped over his defenders, he was still getting to the free throw line 7 times per game. Even though his contract was pretty big, it looked like he'd still be able to be a high-level player. But in 2021, he looks the worst he's ever been. Blake is averaging a career low in points, rebounds, blocks, free throw attempts, and shooting the second worst field goal percentage of his career. It seems like the injuries have caught up to him even more. He is taking even more outside shots than usual when you compare to the shots he's attempted at the rim. This stat right here is a pretty big tell. In 2021, he's taking only 3 shots per game in the restricted area. In 2019, he was taking 7 shots per game in the restricted area. That's 4 shots at the rim per game less he is taking. And the most disturbing thing about this season is that he has 0 dunks on the year. That's another huge tell that Blake is having a difficult time using his dribble and strength to get to the rim and elevate past his defender. His defense is getting worse as well. His lateral movement is slow. There was a play in the final seconds against the Celtics a few weeks ago where he was guarding Jason Tatum and he just fell over when Tatum dribbled by him. Even NBA players are noticing that he is cooked now on defense. Marcus Smart said this after one of the games against Detroit. "We got exactly what we wanted. We got Jason going downhill against Blake. He's not the same Blake as he used to be quicker, and we just took advantage of that." That's honestly a sad quote. Blake in the past wasn't somebody on defense who you could just say, oh, this man is food, let's attack him. But in 2021, he's someone that you can go at to get in rhythm because you probably can get a clean shot off at the rim. The Pistons are bad and are going to get a top 5 pick. Does Blake fit on a team going forward that isn't getting to the playoffs? Probably not, but it would be hard for the Pistons to trade him and get him to a contender because he is making $75 million and has 2 years left on his deal. He's going to be on the Pistons for the next 2 years unless a team is really desperate or he gets healthy and redeems himself offensively. PJ Tucker has not been good for the Houston Rockets so far this year. He had a game where in 16 minutes, he had 0 points, 0 rebounds, and 0 assists with 2 fouls and a turnover, the Tony Snell special. His regular per game stats are slightly deceiving. You check them and compare it to last year and you might say, oh, PJ's doing alright. He is shooting a nice number from 3. His rebounding numbers are slightly down, but he's bringing them in and he's probably playing some good defense. No, his defense on the perimeter has looked a bit slower, his side-to-side movement isn't as fast, and he's not moving the same. The Rockets are moving in a different direction after the James Harden trade. They aren't competing for a championship, there's a lot of new players they are looking to develop. PJ Tucker at his age doesn't fit the bill of someone who plays on a developing team. He provides more value as a power forward or a center in certain lineups on teams competing to make a run to the playoffs. There's a lot of trade rumors I'm seeing. I've read the Timberwolves are interested. I see the Miami Heat and Boston Celtics could have some interest in him. PJ isn't completely done, obviously. He's still a high IQ guy and demands attention when shooting corner threes, but I think the Rockets need to trade him soon before people around the league realize he is getting old and wasn't just not trying like Harden was. It's actually crazy how bad Aaron Baines has been for the Toronto Raptors so far this year. When they lost Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka in free agency to both of the LA teams, Toronto had to get somebody to play center minutes, and Baines was that guy. He was injured for part of the year with Phoenix in 2020, but he had career highs in points and three-point percentage. It was the best offensive season of his career. He plays good defense. The roster fit next to Pascal Siakam and Kyle Lowry made sense. Baines was supposed to provide a level of defense and three-point spacing for Toronto, but he has provided none of that. He is shooting below 40% from the field, shooting below 20% from the three-point line, and committing dumb fouls and turnovers. Those percentages aren't even close to the ones he put up in Phoenix. He has his moments, but he looks visibly slower on defense. This is not the guy I remember in Phoenix or Boston. The last 2 games, Baines will start for the opening minutes and the Raptors will keep him on the bench for the rest of the game. They have found more success going to lineups with Chris Boucher at center. He has more athleticism and skill at the position. Baines is getting up in his mid-30s, so it's a possibility he might just be declining. If he's going to get back in the rotation, he's going to need to provide some type of offense. I read a tweet about Ben Simmons the other day that I definitely agree with. Let me know what you think of this. Kyle Neubeck says, I think what happened online with Ben Simmons is the initial overcorrection of the shoot a three coward stuff was responded to with an equally forceful overcorrection. It doesn't matter if he shoots, and now there's no ability to have a rational conversation about him as a player. There was a time about a year and a half ago when you saw Ben Simmons take a massive leap as a defender. The people that back Ben Simmons were saying, this guy is going to be elite for the next 10 years guarding people, give him some time for his offense. Some of it was true, but also some of it was a reaction to the other side of the argument of people saying, this guy is overrated, he can't shoot or lead an offense. The Ben Simmons discourse has gotten pretty crazy lately. There are strong defenders of his, and there are people that are just done with him as an offensive player, and it's only gotten worse because the Sixers did not get James Harden. I understand why they did not make the trade, but I lean more to the shoot a three you coward side. How many times are we going to see Ben Simmons quick dribble up the court, hand it off, get out of the way, and stand in the dunker spot, then watch the rest of the play? Ben is averaging a career low in points and field goal attempts. He has just gotten worse as a scorer and someone who initiates offense. He just has. Even his biggest defenders have to admit that. Something weird about Ben is that it's not just his lack of three-point shooting, it's that if he doesn't have a clear lane to the rim, he won't go for a layup or a dunk. He doesn't have the greatest touch or basketball feel when he's near the rim. He gives up and passes out of things way too early. This guy is 6'10", 240 pounds, and crazy skilled. He should have some type of finesse when driving to the rim. Again, I understand why they did not trade for Harden because of the unknown, but if Bradley Beal is available and is traded elsewhere, and Ben is still playing like a jacked version of Boris Diaw on offense, the pressure is just going to get even crazier. Ben has to be better as a scorer, or the Sixers are going to go out early again in the playoffs. JJ Redick is another NBA veteran that is having a tough year on the court. Last season, at the age of 35, he had a really good shooting season. He was averaging 15 points per game, shooting 45% from the field overall, and also 45% from three on 7 attempts per game. He provided that three-point spacing for a New Orleans team that badly needed shooting in lineups with unproven shooters. But this year, he's averaging a career low in three-point percentage, field goal percentage, and scoring the lowest amount per game since his last year with the Orlando Magic. It's not all of his fault, obviously, but JJ not being able to hit a shot in the first 11 games of the season has hurt their team offense. He is 36 years old, but it's not like he's gotten visibly slower when running around screens. I've seen him get good open looks, and he's just missing. If you remember when he first signed with the Pelicans, he said something along the lines of, I don't want my playoff streak to end. He made it with Orlando, Milwaukee, the Clippers, and those 2 years in Philadelphia, but the streak was broken in New Orleans when they failed in the bubble. I wonder what JJ's future is, because he still demands a lot of attention as a shooter. JJ still could be shooting bad like this going into next week, and teams will still make sure to have a guy on him because you don't want him to get going as a shooter and opening the floor for everybody else. The Pelicans are currently the third worst team in the West, and they did not sign Stan Van Gundy to not be competitive, so if they are out of the playoff race by the trade deadline in March, do they explore JJ trades and try to bring back a second-round pick? But of course, he's missing a lot of wide open shots, so I'm sure in a week or something, this talk will be outdated because JJ has proven he can go on hot streaks and get his percentage back up. Devonta Graham had a big improvement from year 1 to year 2. He went from 5 points per game to 18 points. He went from 3 assists per game to 7 assists, and he went from shooting 28% from 3 to 37%. He's had a few good games against the Raptors, but in year 3 mostly, he has struggled as a shooter. He's down to 13 points per game, shooting 32% from the field and 32% from the three-point line. And the pressure is building up a little bit because people want LaMelo Ball to start. Defenses are keyed in on Devonta more, forcing him to use his dribble and try to finish and shoot over the top of longer and taller defenders. He is small for an NBA player. I've seen the talk about how LaMelo needs to start at this point, and I'd probably agree with those people. Devonta is more of a guy who scores in quick bunches and can find his teammates. His assist-to-turnover ratio is really strong. Plus, LaMelo is taller, and that balances out the defense and bench rotation for when guys need rest. Head coach James Borrego says he wants LaMelo off the bench for now, and I trust him with that, so let's let them roll with it for now. The last guy in this video is Lonzo Ball, and I'm going to make a longer video about Lonzo sometime this month or the next one. His backup, Nickeil Walker-Alexander, already looks more comfortable within the Pelicans offense as a scorer than Lonzo does this year. I've noticed some Pelicans fans online that are giving him some time, but are almost done with him because he's not been as advertised. That stretch of really good guard play he had back in early March of 2020 hasn't been there at all this year. Lonzo is struggling to shoot, struggling to get into the paint, and struggling to make the offense easier for the Pelicans. He has the same problem as Ben Simmons when he drives, but a worse version of it because he's smaller. He's really timid as a driver. It's not been a great year for him, and you gotta wonder if the Pelicans just let him go in free agency if he continues to not be a plus player on offense. And that is it for me. These are some NBA players that need to pick it up or their team is going to continue to struggle. Is there any players you have noticed that have had bad years that I should have mentioned? I could have mentioned Kelly Oubre, but to be honest, I really didn't feel like talking about him. I talked about him in a video a few weeks ago. I have some video ideas for later this week that should be good. Appreciate it if you guys make it to the end of this video, and I'll see you guys soon.